Hello, friends, and welcome back to Book Banter. Michelle Cox is the author of the multiple award winning Henrietta and Inspector Howard series, as well as Novel Notes of Local Lore, a weekly blog dedicated to Chicago's forgotten residents, which I highly recommend you check out. It is actually my first encounter with Michelle ever on the internet, and I fell down the rabbit hole of reading all of these blog posts. So I highly recommend you do that. She suspects she may have once lived in the 1930s and, having yet to discover a handy time machine lying around, has resorted to writing about the era as a way of getting herself back there. So please help me welcome Michelle Cox to Book Banter.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I am well. How are you?
Good. Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. I have to tell you that I love this A Spying Eye. It's a beautiful, beautiful book.
Thank
Everybody
you.
can see the cover here. It's intriguing. And that book trailer.
Oh,
Oh,
yes.
love
Isn't
that
it
book
great?
trailer.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, they did a
good.
great job with that. Yeah.
That was literally, I went from the book trailer to buy now. And so
Perfect. It worked.
it totally worked. I was absolutely in love with it. So good job. It's really,
Yeah.
really great.
Thanks.
So A Spying Eye is actually the sixth novel in the Henrietta and Inspector Howard historical mystery series. Can you tell us how the series came to be? What inspired that first novel and what's kept it going for all this time?
Wow, that's a great question. It actually started with so I had written a novel before the series, and I tried for a year to get it agented, and that wasn't working. So that's a whole other story of that journey. But in the
Right.
meantime, I thought, you know what, I'm going to write something different. I'm going to write like a mystery, because I thought a mystery would be attractive to an agent, and little did I know what I was doing back then. But that's what I thought, and so I wanted to write something, shorter and snappier and sexier and more intriguing. But I needed a little kernel of truth. That's
Yeah.
kind of the way I work. So I
Yeah.
need a little story of something that really happened, and then I can weave a whole story around that. So I used to work in a nursing home in the early
Oh.
90s, yeah, in Chicago. And that is where I get all of my blog stories
Oh,
are from
that
my
makes
days.
sense.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
So I've saved some of the really juicy ones for novels.
yeah.
So when I was trying to come up with this book, I also didn't think it was going to be a series. So I thought, okay,
Ah,
I just need a story. And I came up with a woman that I met, who had all these amazing adventures in the 30s and 40s in Chicago. And she told me all about her life. And she just seemed like she was this extraordinary person. She was a very voluptuous, very beautiful young woman. And she used to tell me that she, once upon a time, had a man stopping body and a
oh,
personality to go with it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, who says that?
okay.
Anyway, yeah, so she had all of these really strange jobs in Chicago. Even though it was depression, she never had an issue getting a job
Ah,
because of her beauty.
she
So
was,
she was quickly
yeah.
hired all the time, but she was always getting fired. And it's because she was being always felt up in the back, or
Oh,
yeah, so
mm,
she would slap the owner or the manager, and then she would be out. And I just thought that took incredible courage for
absolutely.
somebody to do that during the Great Depression, when jobs were
Yeah,
so scarce. So
yeah.
she was really spunky, and I thought, okay, she worked at the World's Fair. That was another one of her jobs
Oh,
in the
wow.
30s. Yeah, it was 1933, and in Chicago. And I really love that detail. She
Yeah.
used to dress up as a Dutch girl and pass out flyers.
Oh,
And I thought, I love that detail so much. I really want to put that into the book, but I wanted the book to be set in the 40s. And I'm like, well, this is one
ah,
book. I can write a book in the 30s. And so
right.
I set the book in the 30s. And then halfway through the book, I just really fell in love with the characters, and I didn't want it to end. I'm like, I'll make it into a series. But then I thought, oh no, now I'm writing a series in the 30s. But yes,
Which is
but I'm like,
hard.
Yeah, I can do it. I can do it. So that's how it all started. It was based on this woman. A lot
Wow.
of what happens in book one
Okay.
really did happen to her.
Really?
So a lot of book one is true. I mean, I had to make the
Okay.
murder in the inspector and all that
Right.
kind of stuff, but yeah, it kind of went from there.
Okay. And book one is
A Girl Like You.
A Girl Like You. Okay. Good. Mental note.
Yes.
Tucking it back. I'm like, okay, adding it to the list.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's fascinating. I love that. And
Yeah.
it's so often that honestly we can't make up things as
I
well as
know.
they are like real.
Yes, don't you? I mean, sometimes there are things that happen and you're like, this would be great in a novel, but no one would believe it because it's so fantastical.
Exactly. That is
Yeah.
so true. Yes, author
Yeah.
problems. Totally.
Right?
I get
Yeah.
that. Absolutely. So, what drew you to the mystery side as opposed to straight up historical fiction? Because your historical in depth is very good. So I'm just curious
Thanks.
about.
Well, I have to confess here that historical fiction, like straight up historical fiction is pretty much my true love.
Ah,
And again, I thought that writing a mystery would be sort of my ticket into publishing.
right.
So I'm not really a huge mystery fan. I mean, I was
Oh,
as a kid.
interesting.
Yeah, I read tons of mystery as a kid, but not as an adult. I read all historical fiction. So
Gotcha.
I thought, you know what? I'll just combine the two for this one book. And then here I am writing
A
a
career
mystery
was
series.
born.
Yes, I'm like, I didn't really think this through very well. But no, I do enjoy the mystery part because although it is the hardest part for me.
I would guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I do like it in some ways because I think that it really keeps me on track. So
Yeah.
with mystery, there's not a lot of room to like veer off. You have to keep the plot moving. And it's great because it gives your characters something to do. So
Agency.
yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
they're solving the mystery, but really in my books,
Yeah.
it's, really more about the characters and what's
It
going on with
is.
them. The mystery's
Absolutely.
kind of in the background a little bit. Yeah.
But yet when the mystery comes to being solved, all of a sudden you go, "Oh, I see the
Yes.
thread," which is always fun. I like mystery. I'm partial to actually like legal thriller kind of.
Okay.
I I read those when I'm editing for pacing. It
Yes, they're
reminds me to
good,
keep things
right?
up, yeah,
Mhm.
but I'm drawn to a mystery storyline, and I just don't think I could pull it off, but but that's your.
You never know, you never know.
But I mean, if anything, I've seen a lot more historical fiction, um, have that suspense element to it in recent years. I mean, Kate Quinn has done exceptionally well with that slice, right?
Yes, exactly, and I have thought about that too, and this is kinda goes into the whole marketing discussion, but, there's so many books that are historical or probably even women's fiction, like
Yeah.
Beatrice Williams, Lauren
Yes.
Willig. They're not
Yep.
considered mystery writers, but they all have some kind of
Yeah.
secret or unsolved problem. And
Yeah.
I'm like, now why are they shelved here instead of here? So that's always very interesting to me.
And I think it is bare bones. It is as soon as you insert an inspector or a sheriff or a some character that's sleuthy
Mhm.
by profession, it automatically gets thrown to the mystery
I agree. Yeah,
area.
for sure.
Whereas, so it's an interesting mix. Although, to be fair, there wasn't actually historical fiction as a genre until the last 3 or 4 years. Like you could go in,
Really?
yeah, you'd walk into a bookstore and historical fiction was filed by author last name, same as libraries. And it's
Okay.
only been recently that now you walk into the bookstore and there's a whole table of historical fiction,
That is so fascinating.
along
Yeah.
with a whole table of book talk now.
I know. Trying to crack
So,
that code, that's crazy.
oh, yes, we should talk about book talk
We
actually,
should.
because that's fascinating, and I'm not up to dancing or singing on
Yeah.
camera, so and nobody wants to hear me sing, let me tell
You
you.
never know. I know that's what my
Oh,
kids tell me. They're like, please, mom. Every time their kids come over, I'm like, follow me on TikTok. And they're
right?
so embarrassed.
Do you know what's funny though is that I don't know about you, but Megan Trainor's song "I Made You Look" is like thrumming through my head
Yes.
all night long because of TikTok, and I'm like addicted to watching other people dance.
Yes,
This is a
yes. No
problem.
dancing here. Yeah, but
No, 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 no dancing. No, that takes a little more wine than usual.
right. Oh my
So,
gosh.
so the era, does the whole series take place in the 30s then?
Yeah.
It does. Okay. And so you chose the 30s because of that main character to start.
Yeah, that one detail about her
Oh,
working in the World's Fair. And I'm kind of glad now that I did it because I do
yeah.
think that this is a little bit of a forgotten era.
Yes.
So we have so much World War II stuff out there and even a lot of World War One.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah.
think this is kind of an underserved generation. So it's kind of good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's interesting because I'm my characters eventually are just gonna edge into the 30s, and I'm a little
Ooh,
concerned because I'm like, things are about to get bad. I'm
I
sorry.
know. Right.
but but there's a lot of intriguing. It's kind of like the 20s to me. Not everybody was a flapper in the 20s, and
Exactly.
not everybody struggled in the 30s. It was a certain
Yes.
percentage. So
Yes.
it's the rounding out of history, I think.
Yeah. It's the have
So,
and have nots. Yeah,
yep, which
definitely.
really hasn't changed much.
No,
So,
that's true.
it's just we're not highlighted worldwide by it.
Hmm.
That I think that's the difference. But
Right.
it is, yeah, I think it's a good era and it's a very niche era for you. So, good job. I think that's working in your advantage. So,
Thanks.
so your novels are deeply woven with historical insights. Like it was like I was just saying before we went live. It is like butter to me. Like I am like reading it every word because it is just so intricate. And I'm like, I am in the room. I can see the artwork and I can smell the cigars, and I'm like immersed. So that's
Thank you.
my favorite thing. So I really enjoyed that. So good job on that. It's always a delight when you can leave the world behind and enter somebody else's world.
To really
So
escape. Yeah, I love that too. When you're just so immersed in a book and
yeah,
when you're thinking about it during the day and
yeah,
wanting to get back to
yes.
that world. Yeah. That's so
You know
fun.
that's it, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, well, I wonder what they're doing now. Oh wait, they're not real.
I know,
So
right?
that isn't limited to just my own characters. It's everybody's characters.
For
So
sure.
so sad. My imagination is a little.
But that's a good thing.
It is. Yes, I'm never bored.
That's true.
So it's so deeply woven. It's very easy for a reader to feel as though they're in the room with the characters. But I imagine that this means that your research is incredibly intense and time consuming. Can you tell us a little bit about how you approach your novel writing and your research?
Well, I am actually, this is going to sound strange, but I am actually not one of those authors that does a lot of research ahead of time.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not one of those rabbit hole people
Oh,
because I find that well, first of all, I just think that I'm so attracted to the past and I feel like I've been collecting details about the
mm,
past since I was a little kid.
yeah,
So just it just kind of goes in my mind and stays there. And all of that time I spent in the nursing home and listening to those people and I think I've watched every period drama known to man
right.
and
Yeah.
I've so anyway, there's a lot already in there. And for me, it's really more about the story. It's really more about the characters. And
Okay.
I feel like if I do a lot of research while I'm writing, it just slows me up. It just
Yeah,
bogs down the
it does.
story.
Yeah.
So I would rather just write the story and then I literally type X, 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 X in a part where I know I have to research what kind of car Clive was driving,
Right.
or what kind of gown Henrietta was wearing, or something like that. And the one time that I broke that rule was in book 4, which is called A Veil Removed. And I did a little bit of research about a local seminary, and which they go to. And
Oh,
I was so,
cool.
see, I fell down the rabbit hole. I was
Yeah.
so fascinated by this history, and I dumped a lot of it into the book. And then when I was going through edits, I'm like,
Then you
this
had to
is
pull it out.
interesting. Yeah, I had to pull it all out because it just didn't serve the story. It served
Yeah.
me.
Right. Yeah.
So with book 5, which is A Child Lost, I did a very small amount of research ahead of time on it. That centers around a very famous, or I should say infamous, insane asylum in Chicago that really existed. And then I did do a little bit of research ahead of time for the Ghent Altarpiece.
Okay.
Which is in book 6. So
Yeah.
I knew that Clive and Henrietta were going to go back to Europe for book 6 because I kind of ended book 5 that way. So
Okay.
they had already been to England in book 3.
Okay. That
And
was
I
one
had
of my
already
questions.
done,
Yeah.
yeah, I had already done the murdered man in the English village. And so I didn't
Okay.
want to do that again. So I thought,
Yeah.
okay, what about like stolen art? How about something along those
Wow.
lines? So I Googled stolen art, 1930s Europe. And the first thing that popped was the Ghent Altarpiece. And I'm like, oh,
Really?
never heard of this, read
No.
about it. And it blew my mind. I mean, there's just so much out there about
Yeah.
a whole novel, an entire novel could be written just about the night of the theft in 1934.
Wow. Oh, I got chills.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a very fascinating case. And so I
Wow.
thought, this is everything I need. It's got Nazis, it's a
Yeah.
famous painting, it has a very storied history, and
Yeah.
a panel of it, the panel that is missing, is still missing to this day.
That's
So
fascinating.
that was perfect
Oh,
because it gave me some wiggle room,
yeah.
because you can then
Totally.
imagine what
Yes.
could have happened to it. Clive and
Yes.
Henrietta could have come upon it. So it was
Yeah.
everything I needed, but I tried
Wow.
very hard not to overstimulate the reader, because you just don't want to bog them down.
Oh,
So I put a
exactly.
lot in the author's note, as you know.
That's my favorite part of any book is the author's note.
Yeah,
But it on its own doesn't do you any good. You have to read the novel first in order for the context to be there. But that was
exactly.
I love the author's note. I was like, "Oh,
Hey,
that's so fascinating." And then I was
isn't
like,
it?
I could totally see the rabbit hole, like, open wide and invite me in
Yes, yeah.
for something I would never use, but at the same time, I was like, "Oh," but that it was very sort of Da Vinci Code-ish,
A
like,
very, yes, it's
had that
very Da
vibe.
Vinci Code, yeah. And this has never happened before. I was looking around for it. I actually bought a book,
Oh,
on the many thefts of the Ghent altarpieces. I mean, I'm glad I didn't
wow.
read it beforehand, because then I really would have went into overdrive. But
Oh, yeah, yeah.
it had a great, it was a great resource.
It's interesting. It's actually really interesting to hear how you do it because I think you do it the same way that other authors do. It's just that your
Okay.
knowledge comes from a host of years of experience in immersing yourself in it.
Yeah.
So if I'm tackling a new era, I basically spend 6 months and immerse myself in that, the music and the drinks and
Wow.
the food and the movies, and I do all of that just to have myself in it. But it's like,
Wow,
6
that's
months
fantastic.
and really fun. You pop the corn and call it research,
Yeah, exactly.
and it's fabulous. But you've just had that over the years,
Yeah.
and you've immersed yourself over the years. So it's I still buy lots of books and do lots of research and reading and everything that way. But then when I go sit down to outline, then the story can be forefront. And so I can see the similarities. It's just you've had the benefit of having that time with the nursing home to gather all of those stories and sort of thread them together, which that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I was always the kid at family parties that was just sat and listened to the older relatives tell the old stories. I would just loved
Absolutely.
that. Everybody else out I was playing tag or something, and I was just
Yes.
listening. Yeah. And I like to throw a
Yep.
couple of those details into the books too. And it's fun
Oh,
because my
yeah.
family always picks up on it. Like
Absolutely.
some of those little gems of family history that I throw in.
And that's kind of the fun part. I think family stories around the table are the best
Yeah.
because they not only help you understand where you've come from, where your heritage is, but also our imaginations just take that little nugget and run with it.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
really good at running with things.
Right? You just need a little kernel and off we
That's
go.
that's all it takes is just
Yeah.
that little bit. I completely understand. Unfortunately, that means that we have, like, about 30 ideas of
Oh
stories and
gosh, tell me about it. I have a huge list of what I want to work on
right?
next.
And my brain can only hold 3 at a time, like, that's the limit. So, it's and then they argue for, attention.
Yes, right?
Like
Yeah, I
over a
know.
rag doll. It's like children pulling a rag doll. It's quite it's yeah, it's another author problem, right?
Right.
So I was gonna ask if you've had the opportunity to visit the places that your books are set, or if you've,
Well,
like, Google walk the earth like I do.
I do that for some things, but I used to live in Chicago. I've lived there for
Okay.
about 10 years. So Book 4 centers around Mundelein College, which I went to. It's an all women's college and
Wow.
run by the BVMs, as it's mentioned in the book. But in the books, it would have been a brand new school because it was built in 1929.
Ah.
So that was really fun for me to sort of virtually go through the archives and look for
Yeah.
what it looked like at the beginning. So that was fun. As far as the European stuff, I have never been to Strasbourg, I have to admit it, and I did
Ah.
do the walk Google,
Go walk, yeah.
yeah, for that.
Thank you,
But,
Google.
yes, exactly. Can you imagine what it was like being a writer before the internet?
Well, except for nobody else could check you either.
That's true. Yes, good point. Um, but Castle Linley, which is the Clive's ancestral home, I set that in Derbyshire because that's where Chatsworth is. And I have been to Chatsworth
Oh.
several times and it's just so heavenly. And I love that particular part of England. So, and I've been to England because my husband is English.
Oh,
So I've
okay.
been there like 100 million times and I did a study abroad there. So
Oh, nice.
I'm very saturated in that also. So,
That's actually really handy because he probably
yeah.
says things off the cuff that we wouldn't normally know. Like, that's
Yes.
handy.
And he's a beta reader for me and there are certain most of the characters that are British in the books are from a higher class. Of course, they run into whoever, but he will catch certain things and he'll say, "This is something that, a working class person would say. The
Ah,
aristocracy would never say that." And I'm like, "Oh, got it."
interesting.
So he's good.
Interesting. That is
Yeah.
good. That's really helpful. It's amazing, the insights of different people's experiences. I think I love that as beta readers. It's like, "Oh, look at that person picked out that one, and that person picked out something else," and
Yes, yes. I
it can be
know.
mind-boggling too to fix, but at the same time, it's really insightful because it gives you a sort of a glimpse, which is, I guess, its purpose of what readers will think and how they will interpret it. So,
Yeah, and that's a different whole subject is how to pick your beta readers and
oh gosh, yeah,
because you really want a cross section.
yeah.
I feel like I need to get new ones because I can predict what they're gonna say before they even say it. So,
Wow.
yeah, because everybody has their own they're coming to a book from their own perspective.
Yes, just
So
like a reader. Yeah.
so the person who has chronic relationship issues is
Right.
always going to see the relationship as problematic.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and I'm like,
Ooh. That's a good insight.
It is a good
That's a
insight.
really good insight. Aha. There's always a
Yeah.
little bit of psychology in writing. And it's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
one of the greatest things I think that when I understood it, I was so grateful to understand was that when you release a book into the world, it now becomes the reader's book. And
Yes.
every reader brings to that book their own life experiences, their own haunts, their own successes, all of that. So it really
Yeah.
becomes their book. And so their interpretation of it is it's valid, always
Yeah,
valid.
there's nothing you can do. And that's something that I always find, like, I think you were just saying this, intriguing, is when it does get out there into the world, just to see what
Yeah.
people's reactions are to it. It's really
Yeah.
fascinating.
It
And
is.
they
And
sometimes they can pick up things that you didn't even
yes.
think about.
You're like, "Oh, you're a little smarter than I am. Good catch."
I know, like book 1, Clive's dog is named Katie, and his deceased first wife is Catherine. And
Oh,
people are like, "Did you do that on purpose? That's weird." I'm like, "Oh my god. No, I didn't."
that's just how they came to me.
Yes.
They lined
But
up in a row and shook my hand and said, "Hi, I'm Catherine."
yes. So now I have to like double think every name. Like,
Right?
what's the
Yeah.
subconscious underpinning there?
It's so true. I wrote, All That Was, the entirety of it calling the pastor Father. I called him Father Michael, and in my heart of hearts, he will always be Father Michael. However, in the faith that the church it was Episcopalian. I know that's the wrong way to say Episcopalian
There you go.
Methodist kind of combo. It was the First Church of Seattle, and they don't call their pastors father.
Oh.
And it was literally on the final pass of the book that I went, "Oh, this is like a knife to the heart that I have to change this to Pastor Michael because he will always be Father Michael in my."
That is good catch. That's
You
great you caught it before it went out.
do you know how I found out? This is funny. I, emailed, the church that I belonged to as a child, in Alberta, and, the reverend is no longer there, but there's a new reverend, obviously. And I said, I wanted to, in my author's note, give credit to the memory of now I'm going to cry, now the memory of my
Oh.
reverend. And funny enough, he was the one who said, just so you know, I don't think that that church calls them father. I think that's an Anglican thing. And I was like, oh, good
Wow.
to know. So, two
That's
birds, one
awesome.
stone.
Wow, that is so interesting.
And one of those things you don't know what you don't know until,
Yes, I wouldn't have thought
right?
of that either. Good
It
thing you
didn't
did
even
that.
occur to me. Yeah, it was a
Although I
blessing.
wonder if anybody would have caught it.
I think anybody who was something
That
other than
religion,
yeah,
yeah.
and
You're
it's
probably
not
right.
and it's not a very it's not really a religious book. It's just it happens to take place in a church.
Okay.
So it walks the line, so I don't delve into the true essence of their faith at all. It just is it's this historic building, so that's why there was a preacher there. So
Well, that's interesting because I gave, I think, an early copy. I might have, I used to belong to a local book club, and the great ladies, and some of them asked to be a beta reader for one of the books, and I'm like, sure. So one of them flagged, because there wasn't, because it's revolving around Mundelein, and so
right,
there's lots of sisters, there's lots of nuns. So I spelt it SR period, like Sister Bernadette or whatever.
yeah,
And some of them, who obviously weren't Catholic, were saying, "What does SR period mean?"
right,
They were reading that as senior.
senior, yeah,
I'm like, "What? No, it's sister." Like, "Well,
yeah,
we don't
yeah.
know that." And I'm like, "Well, that is such great feedback. I love
Isn't that
it."
true? It was
Yeah.
so true. I did the same thing in this one. In the, as the first couple of mentions, I was like, "Wait, no, that's," and it took me a minute. But then I was like,
Yes.
once I got it, then I knew, okay, that's the nun. That's the yeah. Isn't it
Yeah, right?
interesting?
Yeah.
Because it's whatever your life experience is.
Yes.
So
And as
it's
an author, you have to try to cover all those bases, but
yeah,
sometimes things slip through.
and keep a plot line together.
Yeah.
Not an easy job.
No, it's
Good thing we
not.
love it so much
Right. Most days.
most days. Yes, there are headbanging days as well.
God.
Oh, always, always. So I have not yet read the previous titles in the series, so I'm curious how the characters have changed over the course of 6 novels. Has there been a significant, character arc or change?
Yeah, I think so because that's kind of the point of the book. So it's not like the same characters solving a different mystery every time. Like
Right.
we talked about, the mystery's kind of a little bit in the background. And so I think you're coming into the series at book 6, and so Elsie's storyline is huge. But in this,
Okay.
that's Henrietta's younger sister.
Mhm.
And in the first book, Elsie's there, but she's just a bit character, and she was never meant to be more
Ah,
than a bit character. And then as the
interesting.
series has gone along, she has grown and grown and grown. And some people write to me and say, we love the Elsie storyline.
Mhm. Me too.
Can you spin her off? I'm like, I guess. Anyway,
That's a great idea, actually.
yeah. So, I mean, there's just so many characters by book 6, and Stan, there's a character named Stan who's not really in this book, but he's a huge part of the first few books, and he
Okay.
is supposed to be sort of the comic relief. But
Oh,
his story, and he himself continues to grow and change, and his storyline took a little bit of a darker path.
uh-uh.
And so then I felt like I kind of exhausted that storyline, and so I brought in a new comic character, which is Melody Merriweather, who's Elsie's college roommate. So
She's funny.
yeah, yeah, the characters definitely grow, and as far as Clive and Henrietta go, they're very different from when they begin. She's a very
Okay.
young, impoverished taxi dancer, and he's
A
a
taxi dancer?
taxi dancer. So these were women that were hired by dance halls of the day to
Okay.
dance with men for 10 cents a dance. So sometimes
Oh,
they were called dime a dance girls.
okay, that's what I've heard. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
and yeah, so it's kind of a very
Taxi dancer.
not
Huh.
reputable job, a step
Oh,
below prostitution. A lot of that kind of went on at the same
a step
time.
below.
Yeah.
I
Or a
think it'd
step
be a step
above, I
up.
guess.
I was
Yeah.
thinking it'd be a step
I'm
up.
saying it the wrong way. So,
That
yeah.
makes sense, though. I mean, again, history repeats itself. Yeah.
Yeah. So Henrietta's working that job, and which is, again, going back to this woman in real life, that was one of her real jobs. And so
Really? Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
all the jobs in book 1 that Henrietta has, this woman really had. She was like a
That's fascinating.
hair curler demonstrator, a coat check girl for the mob. She was a
For the mob.
26 girl, an
Wow.
usherette at a burlesque hall. Yes. So anyway, she's working all of these crazy jobs, and then there's, I made up the murder, and then Clive comes into the picture
Oh,
and basically kind of uses her a little bit. He can see that she's very beautiful but kind of innocent, and so he asks her to go undercover for him, and then it
ah,
turns into a much more dangerous situation than
then he anticipates.
right.
Ah, I see.
So then they end up
Okay.
getting together, obviously, but there's a lot of trust issues. And also, he
Mm.
lied to her in that he didn't tell her that he was the heir to this gigantic estate.
Oh,
So she
oops.
thinks she's getting together with a Chicago cop, and
Right.
he is a cop, but he is actually also has this other life. So there's a lot of
Okay.
drama there. There's a lot of potential for growth. And so
That's
stepping into
good.
book 6, yeah, they're a very different couple at that point.
Oh, very interesting. So now I know that I have to go back and read book 1 to 5 in order. Okay. I will do that. Although somebody on Facebook did tell me when, I posted about our interview, somebody said, "Oh, you're gonna love the series, and yes, you can start anywhere you like."
Oh, okay.
And I was like, "Well, that's always a good thing because I like that because I'm not one of those readers who waits for a series to be finished before I start."
I know a lot of people do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know that
So
my brain has that capacity to hold that kind of information, so I'll just read and enjoy while I can.
I like to do that with TV shows. I like it to
Yeah.
be completed so that if I wanna binge it, I can.
Yes.
And book
Downton
7,
Abbey.
yes, book 7 is gonna be the last book of the series. So
Oh,
at
it is.
first I was, like, not wanting to say that to, like, keep it secret, but then I'm like, "No, maybe I should advertise that and
Yeah, because
say,
what
'Look, it's
Mhm.
ending with 7.'"
Yeah, so start reading now.
Right, yeah,
I absolutely would, pull the trigger on that for
yeah,
sure, because I think it's gonna take people a little while to read through it as well.
yes.
So, yes, I definitely would.
Okay,
Definitely.
good
Oh,
good advice.
I'm getting it at the right time then. That's a
Yeah,
good
right.
thing. Oh my goodness. So the art history in A Spying Eye is absolutely fascinating. Sorry, my
Yeah.
watch is beeping at me. And is there a so you talked about the research a bit about the Ghent and everything like that, but did something stand out to you that just too good not to share?
Well, I think that, as I put in the author's note, I just think that there are that the I couldn't put all of this into the book, but I do think that the theory that this was a part of this so this the Ghent altarpiece is made up of 12 panels, and it is a triptych, so it folds in on itself.
Okay.
And one of the 12 panels was stolen, and on the night of April 10th, 1934. And one of the theories is that it was stolen ahead of time because they knew, based on all of the world leaders before, like Hitler, or I mean
Yeah.
the Kaiser Wilhelm and Napoleon and all these people have attempted to steal the Ghent altarpiece. So they
Interesting.
figured Hitler's going to come after it at some point. So
Okay.
let's take a panel and hide it somewhere and
Oh.
disguise it as a theft.
Oh.
So,
Okay.
yeah, and
That's
so when you
interesting.
look at the events of that night, so apparently the night that the panel was stolen from St. Bavos Cathedral, there was another theft across the street at a cheese shop. So in the morning, the police did not cordon off the cathedral, even though they knew that there had been a theft. So all of these people, tourists, kept walking through, totally
Oh.
destroying any evidence. And instead, they went across the street to the cheese shop to investigate that.
Ah, big
Yeah.
red flag.
Yeah. So the cheese
Wow.
thief who was eventually caught said, "Oh yeah,
Jeez.
I did see two people come out of the cathedral with a pan." So it's like that's just the beginning of it. It's just this
Wow.
whole series of errors that occurred that just make it seem extremely fishy.
Yeah.
So many things went wrong with the investigation, and so the theory is that some government entity, private entity took it, made it look like a theft so that Hitler would not be able to possess the whole, because it
Okay.
would be, humiliating to him. And also at
Right.
the same time, as I say in the author's note, he believed it was a map to
Yes.
these secret weapons. That's where the Dan Brown connection comes
That's
in.
where the yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's interesting.
Mhm.
That's hilarious, the cheese thief. Uh,
There you go.
it does sound very fishy. It
Right? Yeah,
I
it's
could see that.
fascinating.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's a good nugget.
Yes.
That's so funny. So that is all in The Spying Eye, friends.
Yeah.
Good one to look. I love this little tagline, by the way, mixing mystery with romance in a fizzy 1930s cocktail. That's good.
Thank you. You know who came up with that was actually Hallie Efron.
Oh,
So,
really?
yeah, yeah, she blurbed one of the earlier books, and
Wow.
so we use that tagline sometimes.
That's a really good
Yeah.
mention.
Endorsement. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. Wow. So I'm curious, how you approach your writing. So you've got this immersive backlog of research. But what does a typical day look like for you?
Um,
Besides banging your head on against the
yeah,
laptop.
right, like, well, it's so interesting, because pre-COVID, I would have had one answer, and then
Yes.
post-COVID, I have a different answer, but I'll just give you a general. So what I do is my writing days, but I allow myself to quickly check social media for any kind of emergencies that might, any fires that I would immediately have to put out. Otherwise, I'm really not allowed to do any emails or anything like that. I have to sit down and write. So I don't have a word count limit like some people do. I kind of try to do I do set a timer. So I
Mhm.
write
Yeah.
for like at least 1 hour, maybe two. It, there were a couple of years during the series that I wrote 2 books in a year. So I wrote a book for the series and then a standalone novel.
Oh, okay.
So those years I had a definite word limit that I tried to hit every day, but that's because I had that kind of goal. But now I write for
Did
an
you
hour or two.
an hour or two in the morning, kind of?
Yeah.
Yeah. When you were
And
working on two projects, did you do them both in the morning or did you separate them out?
I wrote I gave myself 3 months to write a Clive and Henrietta book, and then I did 3 months of editing, and then I started the other book. So I
Wow.
didn't
Okay.
write them at the same time,
At
no.
this concurrently. Okay. Because that's hard. It's,
Oh, yeah, no.
yeah. I
Some
keep
people do
trying.
that. No, mm-mm.
I keep trying, and I try and separate my morning writing from my afternoon writing, but then by afternoon, I'm like, I'm tired.
Yeah, I when I was first starting out as a writer, I I would do, like, all of my housework. I would do all of that, and then that would be my treat in the afternoon, and I'm like, "Wait a
Oh,
minute, my
yeah.
brain is dead now."
Yeah.
So, this is now I don't do any housework, so
I
that
know,
solved it.
right? That's the solution right there.
Right. Uh,
I hear you.
yeah.
The dust is gonna be there again next week. It shows up every single
Yeah,
week.
so we can't worry about it. There's other things.
Oh, the story may only be there today. So,
Yes, right.
you go and play with the characters when they allow you to.
Well, the thing too is that, I say this all the time. I'm one of those weird writers that writes every day. So, like my birthday, that's like a special writing day.
I
Most
love the way you frame
holidays
it.
I try to like squeeze it in just even a little bit of time if I can, but I find like
Good.
there is no such thing, I don't think, as writer's block.
I agree.
You
I agree
know,
completely.
if you just have to sit in your chair, like, no, it's like exercise. You kind of have to make yourself do it sometimes. Like
I
nobody
do.
jumps out of bed and says, I feel like working
Ooh,
out.
I don't know.
So
There must be somebody, but it's not me.
no, it's like, you don't jump about out of bed and say, oh, I can't wait to write 10,000 words today. No.
No.
You have to just sit and do it. And
Mhm.
so I find that doing it first thing in the morning, my brain is fresh. And then I probably spend, I don't know, 5, 6 hours, um, doing
All the rest of the stuff that
marketing. Yeah.
goes, yeah, yeah. It takes a lot of time
Yeah, it does.
splitting your brain between entrepreneurship and writing, and they're two
Yeah.
very different hats.
They
And
really are. And
yeah,
I don't know if I would have done this if I realized that basically I'm starting a small business.
yes, that's exactly what it is.
And
Yeah.
because I'm not business minded. So now I'm suddenly in
Um,
the middle of this business thinking, how did I get here?
yes, I totally understand.
Yeah.
My husband and I owned a business prior to me, actually committing to writing. I took a 17-year hiatus from writing because I was afraid. Uh,
Yes, 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 yes. I have the same experience. Yep.
and so the business aspect sometimes is more appealing because I know what to do with it, as
Ah.
opposed to the characters that decide things that aren't written on the outline.
Should I trust them or not?
I know, right? Oh, I know I'm gonna hear about this later. Yeah. Somebody's gonna point it out. So, but
Mm,
it is that blend, which is why it's nice to dedicate a specific amount of time to
yeah.
writing. And I do the same thing first thing in the morning. Don't check the email or social media because then I am down a rabbit hole listening and watching
Silly
people
TikToks,
dance.
right?
So
See how it all comes around full circle.
it totally does. TikTok made me do it. That's
Yes,
gonna be a real thing.
I know.
Um, so in terms of writing, are you able to share with us what you're working on now or anything we have to look forward to? I guess book 7 is
Yes, book
coming.
7 is coming. Working on edits. We're coming up with the cover right now. It's called A
Oh.
Haunting at Linley.
Oh. Ooh, I like
Yes.
that.
So that will be the series finale. And then I, I there's so many ideas. I mean, I really would love to do a spin-off
Yeah.
of this series. I've thought about doing picking the series back up, but advance it by 10 years.
Oh.
So now
Wow.
it's the 40s and 10 years have passed and so we can
Oh.
restart it.
Right.
But I'm also thinking about writing a historical fantasy. So I'm
Really?
really excited about that idea.
World
Yeah.
building. Well, you're very good at world building, so I could see the
Thanks.
draw. I could see that. Yeah, I could yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
interesting.
yeah, I might I'm
Huh.
very tempted to jump down that. Again, it's based on a woman that I met in the nursing home. She was a very bitter nurse
Oh,
and she keeps coming to me and I'm envisioning her on the battlefield and she finds a very strange looking man who has a very weird wound. And it turns out he's actually from the medieval times.
oh, ooh.
And he was placed there for her to find by, get this, the Thulians from
The
book 6.
really?
Yes.
Oh, there's the tie-in. I love the tie-ins.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
good.
Yes.
That's good. Oh, wow. So
The
there'll be a reason for your readers to follow you to that.
I'm hoping, but
Mhm.
I think I keep saying telling myself to trust my readers. I mean, not it's not going to be for everybody, but
Right.
most readers read a wide variety of
They do.
genres.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping that some will follow me over into this project.
I think they will. Yeah.
And then I have 2 standalone women's fiction novels,
Ah,
historical that are ready to go. So I'm
really?
yeah. So
Oh, that's
those are
exciting.
yeah, those are very
Oh.
close to my heart as well. So I've been trying to shop them for quite a while. Um, and I think I might self-publish them.
Oh, I would recommend that.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is the business side, but
Yep.
we can chat afterwards. And absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. There's something to be said about taking um the reins of your own career. And
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of am at that point. I mean, I'm with a hybrid press right now. She writes press. And one of the things that Brooke Warner talks about, who's the publisher of She Writes Press, is, being an advocate for your own work and
yes,
being a hybrid author, not necessarily a hybrid press, but I
yes,
think if you're doing this for a career, will be certain books that lend themselves better to being traditionally published,
absolutely.
hybrid published, and self-published. And so I've done all of these books as with a hybrid press, and I think I'm ready to
Yeah,
jump off into self-publishing and just see what that looks like. And, maybe I
absolutely.
won't like it, maybe I will.
Well, and the beauty of self-publishing is if a traditional publisher or a hybrid publisher decides that they do want to pick that up, that's just a re-release, right?
Yeah.
Just kind of like I've just been thinking as we've been chatting that perhaps this should be like a mini series or like a Netflix series.
I mean, I'm not saying this to brag, but I probably have gotten over 1,000, and I'm not kidding, 1,000 emails from people saying, "When will this be on Netflix?" And I'm
Yeah.
like, "You tell me."
Yeah. But do you know the person in Netflix that will take this? Like, 'cause I think it would be very similar to a lot of the things that are that we all go and watch, binge watch,
Yeah, I
right?
mean,
Like,
I've tried dipping my toes in that Hollywood world. It's as
I
big or bigger than the publishing world, which I've spent 10 years trying to
yeah.
navigate. So part of me is a little bit daunted by that. But I
Mhm.
did, um, there's 100,000 ways to spend money as an author.
Yes.
But I did pay for an hour phone conversation with a guy who he's a producer. He's not a producer at HBO, but he's a producer that works with HBO.
Okay.
And so he read one of the books and then he gave me an hour feedback. And
Oh,
it was fantastic. So he's like, you know what? We love the story. Great concept. We would spin it as girl power. But
okay.
I know. And he's like, but nobody in Hollywood right now wants to buy, period. And I was about to say, "But what about Bridgerton?" And before I
Mm.
could get it out, he said, "I know you're gonna say, 'What about Bridgerton?'" I'm like, "Ah, yes."
Yeah.
He's like, "That was a fluke." I'm like, "Okay."
Wow.
So he
It's the
said, "Yeah, right."
same mantra as big
Yeah,
publishing.
yeah,
Wow.
exactly. And
Hmm.
he's like, "The public laps up period stuff, but Hollywood hates to make it because it's so pricey."
I was gonna say it's expensive costuming and
Yeah.
sets and yeah.
So he's like, coming out of COVID, nobody wants to spend that kind of money. He's
Mm.
like, maybe in the future. So,
Isn't that interesting?
so anybody out there
Huh.
listening who has a
Yes.
connection,
Yes. We really need to see this on TV.
yes,
So,
right? Come on.
if you know Reese Witherspoon, this is a good
I know.
interesting. That is actually very interesting. I think what fascinates me the most is for the amount of I don't want to say the word control because it's not necessarily control, but the amount of spin that Hollywood has and that the publishing companies have, they're still not listening to what readers and viewers are asking for.
I know it. I
And
know we could have another gigantic conversation about this. It's true. It's just that they're very risk averse, and yet at the same
yeah,
time,
which their money.
they're
I get it.
they're crying for content.
Yes.
So it's like this weird dichotomy. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's tough to
Yeah.
sort of break through that. It's kind of like big pharma.
Right.
Uh, they're very risk averse, and I feel like I can say this because my husband's a chemist, but
Ah.
they really want blockbuster drugs. So,
Mhm.
and Hollywood really wants a Marvel movie.
Yes.
So, it's
Yeah. That's
there's
just
a market for these smaller drugs or these smaller projects,
yeah.
but they don't want to invest in it because they're not going to make
Yeah,
a
that
return.
makes sense. It makes sense. To me, it's kinda like Canada and the United States, like,
Yeah.
similar geographically, but we have, like all of Canada could fit inside of California. So
Hmm.
so it's kind of that
Yes.
kind of the scale is what it
Yeah.
is. It's a scale thing, and every everybody in business has a tipping point of where it makes sense to do something. And
Hmm.
you just have to figure out how to get to that or convince them that there will be that tipping point. And then
Do you think we're close to in terms of Hollywood or publishing?
I think I do think so. I actually think we're probably about 5 or 6 years away from
Mm.
seeing the deep need of content from books because it's already been proven that it works.
Mhm.
Um, even though we all always say the book was better than the movie.
I know.
We always say that. But I do think that there is huge potential coming, especially because as people be able, like COVID changed the world in terms of how we consume things and how we produce things. And I can imagine that even the movie industry has changed. And so there might be more small fish in the big ponds willing to make those kind of period productions. I
I
don't
hope
know.
so. I
I
hope
would love,
so.
I think we'd all love to see it. So I think that would
Yes.
be,
Yeah, that's pretty much
yeah,
the only thing I watch. I mean, because that's what's
yeah.
interesting to me. And I think
Oh,
there's a lot
yeah,
of people out there. I mean, otherwise
yeah.
I wouldn't be getting 1,000 emails from
Right?
people saying, I want to see this on screen.
Absolutely. Because we want to see them come to life.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're rewatching the Murdoch Mystery Series
Oh, yeah, I
right
watch all
now
those.
from the
Yeah,
beginning, and I'm like, yeah,
I
it's okay,
know.
because it's been like 15, 16 years or so of that
Has
it's
it
been running.
really?
It's hugely
Wow.
long. It's really long, and so I've gone back to Netflix to go to the beginning, so that I'm hoping Netflix keep it on there for me
I
until I
know.
finish.
Sometimes that happens, right? They take it
It's like,
off before you finish. Ah.
yeah, what do I do
I know. And then
now?
you're
So
watching some like pirate copy on YouTube or something.
that I won't do.
Yes.
I do have one last question for you.
Okay.
So I am always up for more recommendations, book recommendations, despite the
Hmm.
pile that's leaning. I just reshuffled it actually, so it stood up straight. And I'm always curious, what are you reading now, or what was your favorite most recent read?
Well, I will just preface that with I don't get to read very much anymore, which is so
Oh wow!
sad. I mean,
No
one of the reasons you
kidding.
become a writer, right, is that
Yeah,
you love books so much, and
absolutely.
the writing end has taken up pretty much most of my life. I'm looking to see if I have it sitting here nearby. Nope, I put it away. The last book I read, which is a couple months ago, which I just adored, was Life After Life by Kate Atkinson.
Life
And
after life.
Life
Okay,
After Life. And
okay.
she's a new to me author, but when I looked her up, she's huge.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
And yeah, and I just thought it was such a clever book. It's about a person who just keeps coming back trying to
Oh,
get it right. And
yep.
so the first chapter is only a couple of paragraphs long.
Oh, wow.
That's her first, so it's like 1914, and she dies in birth.
Oh.
So that was life number 1. So
Okay,
then
yeah, quick.
chapter 2, so it's just so
Fascinating.
fascinating how she crafts the story. I mean, it's so just superior writing skills. She's
Okay.
she's amazing. And
I'm gonna write that down.
here's the thing. I happen to be at home and my sister-in-law, I'm like, "Well, hey, Carrie, what are you reading lately?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm reading this really great book." And I'm like, "Oh," and she talked it up so much that I bought it, which is rare because I have 1,000 books
Right?
already, and I loved it. And that kind of goes back to that whole, not to bring it back around to marketing, but they
But
say
it's
the
word of mouth.
number one
Yep,
is word of mouth. If somebody tells you
absolutely.
this is a great book, you will go and buy it. It doesn't
Absolutely.
You can see 100 ads for this book, but
Yep,
unless somebody tells you. So,
yes.
yeah,
Which
word of
is
mouth
why
marketing.
absolutely, and, those are the best recommendations too, right? Which is
Right.
why I always like to ask authors what their favorites are, because it's a good recommendation from somebody who's well-read and
Yeah.
well-researched and everything like that, and I think that actually we're gonna come right back to TikTok. I think that's why TikTok is so successful, because it is people recommending books that have impacted them. So,
Yes, that is the power of TikTok, but it's already becoming infected.
is it?
Yeah, with like book promoters, and myself
Oh,
included, like Instagram is. You can put your book on an Instagram tour, and it's very
yep.
powerful, and now people are starting to do it on TikTok too.
Ah, I
Sending people
see.
arcs of their books who are big book talkers to
Right.
say, "Look, I got this book in the mail. It looks great."
I
So,
didn't realize that. Okay.
yeah, it's
Okay.
already going the way of Instagram.
that's a little bit sad because the book talk community is quite lovely
Yeah.
and so supportive. Historical fiction readers, though, you guys are all lurkers. You don't do a lot of you don't post a lot, but I think you still are you read a lot. So,
Yes.
if you are on TikTok, go follow Michelle at her TikTok. You can find
Thank
me there
you.
too. Um, but
Yes.
it's I am not dancing.
I'm not either, but I do have some kind of funny videos.
Absolutely, yes, yes, exactly, and, Megan Trainor got into my feed, so, in a bookish way.
Yes.
So, but it is really, it's a great platform actually for book discovery. I've seen some great titles on there that I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna write that one down because that looks good,"
Same.
and
Yeah,
right?
same.
So,
Yeah, TikTok is, I mean, I don't know, it's its own beast, and,
yeah.
I think because it was what I thought initially was just, I was quick and silly, I didn't feel this big pressure, like, it's gotta be so
Yeah.
professional, and
They
I'm like,
apparently do better with, like
I'm just gonna jump on, and
yeah.
it's been good, yeah, because
It's quite amazing.
yeah, you kinda get rid of a lot of that fear, and, you just put
Yeah.
yourself out there. I mean, I s
Yes.
I made the mistake of with Instagram, I don't know, I have, like, so much fear on Instagram, it's, like, not n natural.
Oh, really?
Like, I have to have the perfect content, and the perfect strategy,
Oh.
and the perfect everything, and I spent, like,
Hmm.
2 years trying to craft this, like, content strategy. So
Really?
by the time I finished my content strategy, Instagram had changed.
Right.
So then when TikTok came around, I'm like, "Nope, you're not allowed to do any research. You're just jumping
Yeah.
in. You're just not
Yeah.
coming up with strategy. You're just doing it."
And
And
I
it's
think
worked.
and you know what? The funny thing is that's the point of social media
I
is
know
we
it.
are actually supposed to go on and be social and meet other people. And I have met some really great authors from social. And I'm
Yes.
like, yeah, you know what? You can you can make your next best friend
It's true.
on
It's
social
true.
media. And
Yeah.
it's amazing. Because I mean, I knew you through social, and then
Yeah.
we met at, the Historical Novel Society, like, briefly because I think we were in the middle of, like, a room change or something at that time, like, the
That's
room was
right.
overflowing, and we
Yes.
had to do a shuffle of everything, and then we got separated, and
That's when the Kate Quinn was talking.
that's right, yes,
Yeah.
yes, and the room, like, exploded in size,
Right.
and we needed to shuffle rooms, so but that was yeah, but I remember thinking, "Ah, I lost Michelle, and now I have to."
I know. Yeah, and it was at that conference too that, I mean, I'm not that big on Twitter at all, but I am on there, and I've met some really nice authors on Twitter, oddly enough. And
Yeah.
I actually met some of them in person at that historical novel society. I'm like, I think we know each other on Twitter. So it's just so weird when these online friends become real.
I know. I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I
It's
do.
very fun.
It is fun. Are you going to HNS in, June?
I'm toying with it. It's
Are
my
you?
favorite conference, so
Mine
I
too.
really wanna go, but, we'll see. So are
Yeah.
you? Are you
Yes.
going? You are
Yeah.
for sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure I'm going because it's, we were all geared to go in 2021,
I know, I was
um,
too.
but, I've never been to Texas, so that's part of it,
Okay.
is so I wanna and I think we're gonna drive. So,
Oh.
I'm, like,
Oh
on the far west coast of Canada.
my god.
So,
That sounds
I'm
terrible.
like, "Oh, really?"
Unless you're like a road trip person.
I'm
If
a
you're a
road trip.
then you'll love it.
I'm like, "We can go here, and we can go there." That the problem is that, in so many days, you have to shorten down what you can see
That's the
and,
thing, yeah.
attend a conference and probably be close to releasing a book at that time, and so it's a little bit busy, but it's, yeah, I'm always up for a road trip.
Alright, that's cool. Well, good. Hopefully, I'll see you.
Yeah, I hope so too. I hope
Yeah.
so too. That'd be great to connect. We can grab a glass of wine in the in the bar.
For sure.
That would be fantastic. So, friends, if you do not have your reading set up yet for the weekend, check out A Spying Eye. It's available now. It's a beautiful book, and I think you'll really like it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Tanya. Thanks for having me.
We will talk to you soon. And goodbye, friends. Have a good weekend.
Bye-bye.
Grab a book.